During the live broadcast, Amos Black suddenly came out of the bedroom and hugged me, rubbed my neck like a little beast, and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Sister, I will die from you sooner or later." A few minutes later, the hot search of the top actor, doing 3 for Love directly paralyzed a certain beau. A few minutes ago, Amos Black's attitude was not like this. He rolled over and got up from the bed and looked at me condescendingly, looking lazy but arrogant. "Sister, I'm tired of playing." I paused in my slippers, was silent for a moment, and said, "I have a live broadcast in a while, and I don't have time to pack up for you, so wait for the afternoon. I'll help you deliver it to your apartment when it's done." Amos Black laughed, leaned over and pushed me back into the bed, smirking. "You're trying to dump me." I sighed silently. Obviously he was tired of talking first. However, the two of us have a relationship that cannot see the light of day, and it is not a good thing to end it sooner. In fact, his agent has approached me privately many times. The last time he said, "Tracy Henry, you're going to ruin Amos Black sooner or later." Of course I know. After all, I have a husband. But who can say no to Amos Black? I can't do it anyway. When Ingram Noy's call came in, Amos Black was pressing on me. I tried to get my phone, and he bit my lip. I said, "Don't make a fuss." Amos Black's eyes were cold, and he said, "My sister is really ruthless." I got on the phone. Ingram Noy's voice was cold. "Send a set of clothes. It's about the same size as you, and I sent the address and room number to your website. It's just a matter of opening a room with another woman, and actually asked me to send clothes." I said, "Ingram Noyes, you're there." Amos Black rested on my lap, and buried his head in my lower abdomen. Blew lightly. "It's warm, at least at this moment. I'm not cold." Someone warmed me up in a different way. Maybe Amos Black just thinks it's fun. I hung up. Ingram Noyes' website message quickly came in. "I don't want you to get all over the bed with that child, so hurry up." Amos Black suddenly reached out and snatched my phone away, and he looked down. The natural peach blossom eyes were glowing with a chill at the moment, and he casually threw the phone aside, and threw me down again, and his tone was unusual. "There is still an hour." I was stunned for a moment. "What?" Amos Black chuckled and looked down to bite my lip. When everything was calm, I understood what Amos Black meant by an hour. "It's really an hour before I start streaming. Fortunately, I am an imitation makeup blogger, and I originally planned to appear without makeup this morning, imitating several European and American celebrities. My apartment is 1 bedroom and 1 living room, and the bedroom is occupied by Amos Black, and I usually live in the living room." As I was removing my makeup in front of the camera after the first makeup, Amos Black came over. He wore a plain black linen lagere, loose, lazy and deadly sexy. I heard footsteps and jerked back, trying to stop him from going on. His name was still swirling in my throat, and Amos Black was already hugging me from behind. He rubbed my neck, and his voice was sweet, like a hungry beast. "Sister, I will die with you sooner or later." I pushed him away like an electric shock, and immediately turned off the stream. But it is clear that it is too late. Amos Black stood in front of me with his hands in his pockets, a smile on his face, but his eyes were full of smugness after the provocation had succeeded. "I'm going crazy." I asked him. "Amos Black, are you crazy? Do you know what you're doing?" Amos Black looked indifferent. "Sister, this is called preemptive strike. Do you want to wait for that old man to blow up our bed photos?" I stroked my forehead. "He's only 30 years old, not an old man." Amos Black laughed and said, "But I'm only 25. Sister." He stepped forward, covered my ears with both hands, and touched my forehead, and his voice lingered. "I will feel more sorry for my sister." I first met Amos Black 6 years ago, crouching on the side of the road, feeding a lame little dirt dog. Against the light, he looked up at me and asked, "Sister, can you help me adopt it? It's easy to raise." I had just been kicked out of the car by Ingram Noyes, and had nowhere to go, so I was deliberately trying to tease the immature teenager in front of me. I bent down and smiled innocently at him, and I said, "Do you know what my sister likes to eat the most?" Amos Black looked up at me and blinked in confusion. I pointed to the little dirt dog squatting across from him and smiled wickedly. "It's dog meat. Moreover, the meat shabu of this little earth dog is the most fragrant." Amos Black was probably taken aback by me. He just tilted his head and looked at me stunned with a pair of affectionate peach blossom eyes. But he couldn't say a word. I sighed in my heart. Alas, silly boy, I don't even have the ability to feed myself. How can I have the ability to feed a dog? I straightened up and walked aimlessly. Someone grabbed the wrist from behind. When I looked back, it's still Amos Black. Then I realized that the boy in front of me was taller than Ingram Noyes. He looked at me and asked a little nervously, "Can that sister adopt me? I'm also very good at raising it." And he blushed and said in a low voice, "I'll give it to my sister. It's so well behaved that people can't control it and want to bully." I thought about what Ingram Noyes was doing with the woman in the car, and chuckled and said, "It's not impossible, but my sister needs to inspect the goods first." There was a gleam in his eyes, so fast that I didn't catch it, and he leaned over and kissed me softly on the lips. It was the first time I betrayed Ingram Noyes, with excitement and nervousness, but I have to admit that Amos Black's kissing skills are really good. I don't know how long the kiss lasted, but when I was about to suffocate, Amos Black let go of me and said, "Sister, remember, my name is Amos Black, and I'm my sister's person now." Things were fermenting so fast that I even suspected that someone was behind it. In just 5 hours, the hot search of pound Amos Black, little wolf dog pound directly paralyzed a certain micro. Amos Black's agent used all kinds of means, and the hot search couldn't be suppressed. Amos Black was lying on the couch like a nobody, nestled in my arms and playing games. I pushed him away, and he threw his phone away, got up, grabbed his messy hair, and asked aggrievedly, "Sister, are you unhappy?" I ignored him, went back to the bedroom to change my clothes, and planned to go out. When I came out, I saw Amos Black curled up on the couch with his hands on his knees. His head was buried deep in his arms. It was as if someone had stabbed me in the heart. Actually, he can't be blamed for the whole thing. I shouldn't have dragged him into this quagmire in the first place. I walked over, crouched down in front of him, and raised my hand to gently rub his soft, somewhat curly hair. Amos Black raised his head. The grievances in his eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by a strong attachment. He grabbed my hand, held it tightly in the palm of his hand, and his voice was sweet and a little hoarse, "Sister." The anger in my heart disappeared in an instant. I said, "Amos Black, you shouldn't be so impulsive. It's not easy for you to get to where you are today, and that sentence will ruin your life." Amos Black laughed. He smiled beautifully. The tails of his narrow eyes rose slightly, revealing a small dimple, the size of a soybean at the corner of his mouth. "It turns out that my sister is going to be responsible for me for the rest of my life." I knocked on his head. "Don't be poor. I'll deal with this matter." He hugged me by the waist and buried his hairy head in my neck socket, and said angrily, "It feels good to be protected by my sister, but this time, I want to protect my sister even more." I said, "Amos Black, don't mess around." He laughed, laughing harmlessly, and he said, "No, is it not going to mess around? Or is it not going to stop?" The phone has been ringing countless times. I picked it up and took a look. Ingram Noyes. The phone call I was waiting for never came, but I couldn't wait any longer. I parked my car in the parking lot near the law firm. It was too hot outside. I propped up a parasol and walked briskly into the office building. When Warner Black saw me, he just stared at me and smiled meaningfully. I said, "Put away your lewd smile." Warner Black pursed his lips and said, "I told you, that kid is a wolf cub. When he is raised, he will bite." How does it feel to be bitten? I didn't have time to talk to him about this, so I asked, "How did you do with what we had discussed?" Warner Black said, "I knew you had come to me for this." He took out a file bag from the drawer and handed it to me, but when I reached out to squeeze it, he didn't let go immediately, but reminded me with a serious expression, "Tracy Henry, this is our only chance." I pulled the document out of his hand. "I understand." On the way back, the phone rang again. I smiled and connected. Ingram Noyes' angry voice rang out in the confined space, and he asked, "Why don't you answer the phone?" This is the second time. Ingram Noyes is in front of me, so angry. The previous Ingram Noyes was calm, looking at me with impatient contempt, like looking at a beggar begging for food at Noyes' house. When did he first break the defense? Oh, the old man of the Noyes family announced that he would marry me to him, and I didn't say no. Afterwards, he tore off all his disguise, revealed his gloomy claws, and asked me angrily, "Why did you agree? I ask you, why did you say yes just now?" I smiled happily, "Because I don't have the right to refuse. If you don't want to marry me, then you go to Noyes family and refuse. You'll only force a girl." Ingram Noyes, you're so low. Of course, he would not refuse this marriage in front of Noyes family, and he even had to pull me and pretend to be in love in front of Noyes family. Ingram Noyes' roaring voice came again, and he said, "Tracy Henry, if you don't have full control over the people around you, you shouldn't keep him around. That little friend of yours will kill the three of us." I smiled and looked at the sky in the distance. Ingram Noyes, it's time for a showdown. I hung up. At this time, a WeChat message came in. "It's Charles Noyes, Ingram Noyes' eldest brother, Tracy Henry. Mom and Grandpa miss you and Ingram Noyes. Go home for dinner at night." I threw my phone in the passenger seat, made a U-turn at an intersection, and went to the Civil Affairs Bureau first. When I came out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, a large area of burning clouds appeared in the sky. I looked up for a while, and my heart was inexplicably happy. "Sister, when are you going home?" As soon as I stepped into Noyes' old house, Amos Black's WeChat message came over. I turned off my phone screen and stepped into the villa. There is not a hint of tension at all. The Noyes family is still as harmonious as ever, but also hypocritical. Seeing me enter, Mrs. Noyes hurriedly ran out of the kitchen, pulled me down on the sofa in the living room with a smile, and asked with concern, "Tracy Henry, why don't you tell your family about such a big incident?" "Don't worry, Mom has already told your eldest brother to ban that Amos Black male star immediately. And as for Ingram Noyes, Mom will explain it for you." She clapped my hand and said, "Tracy Henry, you're being calculated." Ada Noyes sat on the side, blinking her big innocent eyes and asked, "Oh, Sister Tracy Henry, you are such a shrewd person. You can be calculated." I smiled and asked her, "Who said I was calculated?" Mrs. Noyes and Ada Noyes were stunned. Charles Noyes smiled and said, "Tracy Henry, go upstairs with Big Brother. Big Brother has something to tell you." I followed Charles Noyes upstairs and into his study. As the door closed, I saw Charles Noyes smiling maliciously. His face was elegant. "Tracy Henry, this time, you crossed the line. But don't worry, you are the sister I watched grow up, and I will help you deal with this matter." As he spoke, he raised his hand and gently stroked my face, with a gentle and elegant demeanor, but the madness in his eyes was not well concealed. "But, don't have a next time. I'm afraid that Ingram Noyes will be cold, and your marriage will be over." I'm afraid that Ingram Noyes will be cold, but I turn a blind eye to Ingram Noyes' derailment. I smiled and asked, "I heard that Ingram Noyes and Amelia have been having a hot fight recently, and they called me to the hotel this morning to deliver clothes to each other." Charles Noyes said, "Ingram Noyes does things in measure." I answered and said, "I am indeed measured, and I know that the best person to handle is the second lady." Charles Noyes sighed, his fingers running down my earlobe, slowly sliding down my neck, and finally landing on my shoulder. Patting it gently, he said, "Tracy Henry, it's just a man's play. You're the daughter-in-law of our Noyes family, and no one can change that." I laughed. "If Ingram Noyes marries Miss Amelia, I'm afraid my eldest brother's position in the company won't be as stable as it is now." "Right. Oh, no. Mom has been helping my eldest brother find a partner to marry. Find someone richer than Amelia's family. Won't the problem be solved?" Charles Noyes' elegant face was finally torn open by me, but soon, he got back to normal, smiled and asked, "Tracy Henry, is this still blaming me?" I smiled and asked, "What do I blame Big Brother?" Charles Noyes sighed helplessly, as if he were facing a vexatious child, and said, "Tracy Henry, there are some things I can't help myself. I drank too much that night and went to the wrong room. I just didn't expect to be seen by my mother, and I didn't expect her to talk to my grandfather about your marriage to Ingram Noyes the next day. But fortunately, that night, it didn't make a big mistake." The sound of a car engine could be heard outside. Charles Noyes opened the curtains, glanced out the window, and said with a smile, "Tracy Henry, Ingram Noyes is back. Let's go downstairs. How can we have an overnight feud? It's really hypocritical, wanting to take advantage of the possibility of me cutting off Ingram Noyes' marriage with other wealthy families. But I can't bear to let me look good, so I want to taste it before my marriage to Ingram Noyes is proposed. The people of the Noyes family are disgusting to the extreme, and they are also bad to the bone. At the dinner table, Mrs. Noyes used chopsticks to pick up food for Ingram Noyes several times. Like a loving mother, Ada Noyes pouted jealously. Mom, you always favor the second brother. Mrs. Noyes smiled gently and lovingly. The palms of my hands and the backs of my hands are full of meat. Which of you I don't feel sorry for? I tugged at the corners of my mouth. I don't know. I really thought that all three of them were her own. Charles Noyes said softly. Mom has always loved Ingram Noyes the most. And you don't know it? Ingram Noyes ate the dishes. Mrs. Noyes gave him one bite at a time, and looked at me with a smile. Yes, my mother and grandfather have always loved me the most. And even my daughter-in-law has found the one that suits me the most. I swallowed the last bite of my meal, and got up and said, I'm full. Ingram Noyes, do you want to go back together? Ingram Noyes put her chopsticks down, leaned back in her chair, and looked up at me. Okay, let's go back. The old man of the Noyes family said, don't leave anyone. Sleep here tonight. Ingram Noyes looked at me, with an eyebrow and gloated with a smile. I took out my phone, and replied to the WeChat message sent by Amos Black before entering the door, go back. Amos Black replied in seconds, Sister, there is a surprise in the evening. I turned off the phone screen and said, No, Grandpa. The old man of the Noyes family slapped the table, and said angrily, Don't think that you are all hiding from me. I don't know. A girl's family, mixed with a drama all day long, does not abide by women's morals, and is still shameless. Charles Noyes, how did you do to ban that play? Charles Noyes looked at me and said in a gentle tone, Grandpa, I'm preparing. I took out the file bag that Warner Black gave me from my bag, pushed it in front of the old man of the Noyes family, and said with a smile, Grandpa, take a look at the contents first, and then discuss with my eldest brother whether to ban my boyfriend. With that, I turned around and walked out of the restaurant, and when I got to the door, I turned around and asked Ingram Noyes again, not leaving. Ingram Noyes stood up with a smile, raised her hand to straighten her suit, and said, Go. Why don't you go? As I walked to the entrance, I heard the roar of the old man of the Noyes family in the dining room, and the screech of broken porcelain. 10 minutes later, I parked my car in the rest area on the side of the road. Ingram Noyes pulled up behind my car. He got out, pulled open the door to my passenger seat, sat in, and gloated and asked, What did you do to the old thing off like that? I looked at him and said, That's your grandfather, not something. Ingram Noyes laughed, and he said, Tracy Henry, I didn't expect it. Is it worth it to completely tear up the Noyes family for that little friend? I asked him. Half of Amos Black's hot searches are bought by you. Ingram Noyes' tone was lukewarm. You underestimate your children too much. I did spend some money to buy hot searches at first, but then I found out that I don't need to spend money to buy it at all, and I can't hold it down. The phone buzzed twice, and it was Amos Black's WeChat. Sister, didn't you say you'd already go back? Why haven't you come home yet? I replied, On the way. Ingram Noyes looked at me with my hair down, sneered, and mocked. You're quite attentive. I turned off the phone screen and said lightly, Don't you have a lot of interest in Miss Amelia? Ingram Noyes, that's different. It's not the same. Indeed, Ingram Noyes teases Amelia more for clinging. However, no matter how hard you are, it's useless to do 3 things for love, and you can't wash it away. Ingram Noyes gloated, Unless I come forward. Do you think it's possible? I said, No way, but I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau this afternoon. Ingram Noyes was stunned. I smiled and said, I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to issue a certificate of unmarriage. No one knows except me and Ingram Noyes. In fact, Ingram Noyes and I didn't have a license at all. No matter how big the Noyes family held for us to save face, Ingram Noyes and I are not legally married. Ingram Noyes didn't want to marry me, but she didn't dare to disobey the old man of the Noyes family and Mrs. Noyes, so she could only use this way to secretly fight against the Noyes family. As it happens, I don't really want to marry Ingram Noyes either. Ingram Noyes pushed the door and got out of the car with an ugly face. Leave it, Tracy Henry. You're doing well, and turn away. I drove home. The moment I opened the security door, a hard, hot chest was attached to it. I reached out and pushed, but didn't push. He could only put his 5 fingers into his fluffy hair, and tugged at his head with bad thoughts. Why are you so clingy today? Don't. Amos Black finally let go of me. If I'm bald, my sister will hate me. I kicked off my heels and put on slippers. Amos Black bent down as usual to pick up my kicked shoes, and set them up on the shoe cabinet. He sat down next to me, and hung on me like a koala. My sister was so slow to reply to my weshit today. I thought my sister didn't want me anymore. It's heavy. I pushed his head aside in disgust and reached for the cup on the coffee table to drink. After drinking half a glass of water, he said, "Something is delayed," suddenly thinking that he didn't mess around on the internet today. At least he didn't post new remarks on a certain blog. I rubbed his furry head. I did a good job today. And my sister has a reward. Don't move. Amos Black buried his head in my neck. The whole country is watching. He smirked and said, "I'm on the air." I froze. I retract the sentence just now. He really didn't mess around on a certain blog. But the degree of his mess was even crazier than on a certain blog. I gritted my teeth and said the quietest words in the harshest tone, "Put straight, show close." That's it. Amos Black laughed and fell into my arms. And he said, "My sister is so deceitful. Lie to me." I kicked him to the floor. Amos Black took the opportunity to grab my ankle, gently rubbed my ankle, looked up and asked me, "Sister, how do you want to reward me? I forgot how I slept last night." And when my phone rang, I gagged my ears with the quilt in frustration. Amos Black pulled me up, holding me in his arms with one hand and holding my phone to my ear with the other. Ingram Noyes' phone. As angry as yesterday, he said, "Tracy Henry, you agreed to Amos Black's proposal." I woke up instantly, grabbed my phone, and said, "What did you say?" Amos Black was officially announced last night. Thanks to the two of you, the whole country has been paralyzed twice for 2 days. My brain was buzzing, and I said, "Wait a minute." I started looking at my phone. That's when I realized that I had an extra ring on my left ring finger. The design is simple and atmospheric, and the diamond on top sparkles brightly. Amos Black actually posted a photo of me and him wearing wedding rings with their fingers interlocked on a blog. Ingram Noyes' voice came from his phone again, and he said, "What do you think about now?" I grabbed a handful of Amos Black's hair, and it hurt him so much that he grinned before I was satisfied, and said to Ingram Noyes, "Ingram Noyes, let's work together." Amos Black sighed, his expression aggrieved. "Sister, I'm going to be sucked by you sooner or later." I held my phone up to him and asked, "What is this?" Amos Black hugged me and leaned on my shoulder like a big dog, and he smiled and said, "It was last night's surprise." I complained, "The fright is about the same." He really doesn't take his acting career seriously. Amos Black has a movie promotion schedule these days, going to S-City, leaving today, and it's 4 days to go. That's enough time for me to deal with things with Noyes. I made an appointment with Ingram Noyes to meet at a cafe. Speaking of which, it's been a long time since he sat down so calmly with him, except when pretending to show affection at Noyes' house. Ingram Noyes looked at me coldly. "How are you going to work with me?" I got straight to the point and said, "Haven't you always wanted to get the decision-making power of the Noyes family?" Ingram Noyes sneered and said, "I don't just want the decision-making power of the Chongsing Group. I want every Noyes family member not to die well." I smiled and shook my head. "Don't be too extreme. You forgot that a dragon slayer will eventually become a dragon." Ingram Noyes looked at me with a smirk. "Meaning me?" I handed a document to Ingram Noyes. He looked down a few times, and his face changed. "Where did you get these things?" I said, "There's always my way." Ingram Noyes put the information away. "Look down on you." "Shay, what do you want me to do?" I said, "I'll make this information public soon, and the stock market will inevitably fluctuate at that time. So do whatever you want. Just don't make the Noyes family feel good." "Ingram Noyes, what do you want?" I said. "After the restructuring of the Chongsing Group, 5% of the shares." Ingram Noyes, "Yes, deal." I got up to leave. Ingram Noyes called out to me, "Tracy Henry." I looked back. "Anything else?" Ingram Noyes was silent for a few seconds and asked, You're doing all this for Amos Black. I shook my head. No, or rather, not entirely. Hearing me say this, Ingram Noyes looked sideways and said, actually, I knew about Mrs. Noyes discussing with my grandfather about asking me to marry you, very early. I never cared about it. Oh, Ingram Noyes fell into the memory. He said, at first I was not disgusted at all, and even vaguely looked forward to it. When I was just taken back to Noyes' house, Mrs. Noyes was a smiling tiger, and everything was thoughtful and considerate, but I had to go hungry all the time, and only you would secretly stuff me with food. I said, you helped me. Ada Noyes was the one who helped me out when she incited people to bully me at school, and I was just going to repay the favor at that time. Ingram Noyes laughed. Later, I learned that the person you like is Charles Noyes. Indeed, in Noyes' house, choosing Charles Noyes is more promising than choosing me, but you should never treat me like a monkey. I understood everything he said, but when it came together, I couldn't understand it. I said, I don't like Charles Noyes. Never have. Tracy Henry. Ingram Noyes turned her head, and looked at me and said, that night, the night before the Noyes family proposed our marriage, I saw Charles Noyes come out of your room, and I wasn't stupid. Me, oh, I see. Ingram Noyes gritted his teeth and said, the people of Noyes are so shameless that not only do they cut me off, but even my future wife. They want him to contaminate the leftovers first. I wanted to slap the man in front of me to death. The Noyes family is indeed shameless, but you have to apologize for your last word. I have nothing to do with Charles Noyes. Ingram Noyes said, I'm sorry. I was stunned. I didn't expect him to apologize so easily. Ingram Noyes laughed and continued, but don't you hate me? Why do you want me to work with you? I looked at him quizzically and asked, why should I hate you? I just hate that you're living like you hate yourself. I saw a flicker, dim light in Ingram Noyes' eyes. Received a WeChat message from Amos Black. Sister, I got off the plane. It's raining. It's cold. I replied. Where more? Amos Black, I miss my sister's arms. It's so warm. At this time, I suddenly realized a question. Obviously yesterday's hot search was like that. Why did Amos Black's trip not be cancelled, but still go as planned? According to past experience, even if the Noyes family didn't come forward to ban him, no one would dare to use him in a short period of time. I walked out of the cafe and dialed Amos Black. Amos Black, are you a rich second generation with a strong background? Amos Black chuckled lowly. My sister is finally starting to care about my background. My sister took a plane to S-City. I miss my sister. The Noyes family finally couldn't sit still. Mrs. Noyes personally called me and asked me to go back to Noyes' house. Of course I wouldn't. And who knows what the Noyes family was thinking. So I asked them to the Warner Black office. I didn't like to look at Warner Black's pretend elitism, so I sat outside in the big office and waited. Two little girls sitting not far away were gossiping. Amos Black directly angered the reporter at the promotional scene of the movie. Amos Black is absolutely amazing. Dare to love and hate. If I were a woman, I would die happily even if I thought about it. Another little girl asked. How? Is there a video? Yes, that's the video. Nay, earbuds. I leaned in. Although I can't hear the sound in the video, the good thing is that the video is subtitled. A reporter asked Amos Black at the promotional scene of the movie, what do you think about doing 3 things for love? At first, the reporter asked this sentence, which caused a commotion, and the security guard was about to take the person away, but was stopped by Amos Black. He said, for the sake of love, I confess, but by doing 3 things, I can sue you for slander. The reporter said, it's been picked up on the internet a long time ago, and your female partner is married. Amos Black said coldly, if the information on the internet is reliable, what do you need the internet police for? My girlfriend and I, unmarried and unmarried, we are both single, and you should know that I have proposed to my girlfriend, and as for the wedding date, I will notify you later. After Amos Black finished speaking, he directly took out a copy of my unmarried certificate. I don't even know when he copied my unmarried certificate, although it was meant to be used to prove it to Amos Black. Behind him, Warner Black's voice said, you're working hard for this little boyfriend. I was taken aback by the Warner Black, and when I turned around, I saw that the two female staff members were looking at me with envy. Me, the old man of the Noyes family, did not come, but sent Charles Noyes over. Warner Black drove the person away directly, and sneered, "It seems that the old thing won't come out if you don't hit his 7 inches. I took out my phone, and posted the video of my father before his death on the internet, and at Amos Black's official Weibo. I do. May my father be a witness to my happiness. Public opinion has completely fried the pot. In the video, my father speaks the most desperate words in the calmest tone. The Chongsing group knew the law and violated the law and smuggled in violation of regulations. But they put all this on my father's body, and forced my father to commit suicide by jumping off the building. However, they never expected that my father would record it all, and leave it to me. Now, no one believes that I am the wife of Ingram Noyes. After all, who would marry the grandson of his father's killer? But I grew up in Noyes house, and there were all kinds of speculations for a while. I didn't pay attention to any of this. I bought a ticket to S City. When the plane landed, it was still raining lightly in S City, and Amos Black picked me up at the airport. Even if he wrapped himself in black zongzo, I still recognized him at a glance. I ran towards him and threw myself into his strong, broad chest. He took off his mask, lowered his head and kissed my forehead. "Sister, I miss you so much." A girl's scream came from behind me. Before I could react to Amos Black, the girl suddenly pointed at the two of us and shouted, "Amos Black! It's Amos Black and sister-in-law." Amos Black pulled me. Run. We ran through the crowds at the airport and into the drizzle. Chase all the way. Run all the way into an alley. Amos Black dragged me into a small shop. The rain was light, but it drenched my coat. Amos Black took off his shirt and wiped my hair. "Beware of the cold." I looked up at him. "Fool, you won't catch a cold in the rain in the summer, but you will in the fall." Amos Black snorted coldly, obviously not believing my crookedness. An old man's voice with a thick accent came. "Young man, rub it with this." It was an unused towel. Amos Black took it. "Thank you." He was gentle with his movements in wiping my hair, and I raised my hand to rub his half-wet curls. "Wipe yourself too." Amos Black laughed. "Be honest. Don't move." It is a small shop that sells a variety of bulk medicinal liquors. On a rainy day, there was no one else in the store except the three of us. Amos Black scanned the payment QR code attached to the door with his mobile phone, and transferred the money for the towel to the old man. The old man smiled and waved his hand. "No, no." I asked, "Old man, how do you sell your wine?" The old man smiled and said, "The price of each one is different." I pointed to the glass vat with various herbs on the side and asked, "This one?" The old man smiled and said, "This bottle is 50 yuan, 15 yuan a cup." He gestured to the disposable paper cups beside him. I smiled and said, "Give us a drink. Separate it in 2 cups." Old man, "Okay." It was still drizzling outside, and Amos Black and I were leaning left and right on the door frame, sipping our drinks and tilting our heads to wait for the rain to stop. 20 minutes later, the rain stopped. Amos Black's agent also drove us to pick us up. He said, "You two, you are really good at drilling, and I almost didn't find this place." Amos Black stayed here for 4 days, except for the time when he had to go out to work, and spent the rest of the time with me at the hotel. On the last day, the video thing finally fermented to the peak. Someone broke out that the tax and anti-smuggling departments began to intervene in the investigation of Chongsing Group, a subsidiary of Noyes family, and re-investigate the case of that year. The toppling of a building often requires only one piece of wood to be removed. I was on my way home with Amos Black when I got a call from Ingram Noyes. He said that the relevant departments did not intervene in the investigation and did not know, and he was really shocked when they intervened in the investigation. Over the years, the old man of the Noyes family has given up power, and Mrs. Noyes has almost emptied the entire Chongsing Group. After the old man of the Noyes family knew about this, he was directly angry and went to the hospital. In fact, Mrs. Noyes just wants to empty the entire Chongsing Group, and in a few years, I am afraid that the top management of the entire Chongsing Group will be cleaned and replaced with her own people. However, it is understandable that Mrs. Noyes did this, although the old man of the Noyes family openly supported Charles Noyes, but who did not know that Ingram Noyes was more capable of managing the company Charles Noyes. Mrs. Noyes has been in Noyes house for so many years. How can she watch Chongsing Group fall into the hands of her deceased husband, and the children born to other women? Therefore, it is normal to prepare with both hands. Finally, Ingram Noyes said, Tracy Henry, let's meet in these 2 days. In the RV, Amos Black hugged me and said, did my sister reconcile with him? My sister had never heard him talk nonsense for so long before, and it wasn't impossible for my sister to go to see him, but she couldn't be soft-hearted. It's all messy. I was so angry that I knocked him on the head. I'm in a short-lived partnership with him now, and when this matter is dealt with, I won't have any more dealings with anyone in the Noyes family. Amos Black looked at me brightly with peach eyes, and he said, I can help my sister too. I smiled and shook my head. You've helped me enough over the years. I don't know if I would have been able to make it this far without you, Amos Black. In fact, you are the light in my life. But there are some things that I have to solve by myself, and some people, I have to send them to hell myself. Amos Black bowed her head and kissed me. My sister is so sassy. Ingram Noyes and I still meet at a cafe. Ingram Noyes is wearing a well-cut suit, less of the previous unbridled, but a little more elegant on Charles Noyes. Sure enough, power can change a person's state of mind, and it can also change a person's appearance. As soon as I sat down, Ingram Noyes said thank you to me. It seems that I am a little uncomfortable. He handed me what I wanted, 5% of the shares. As long as the company is reorganized, this document will take effect immediately, and the other is the evidence you want. I took the document and put it in the bag next to me. Thank you, Ingram Noyes said. Come with me to the hospital to see my grandfather. I raised an eyebrow and asked, Old man Noyes, is this looking for you to be a lobbyist? Ingram Noyes, I'm his grandson after all, and I'm always going to get by on my face. I nodded. You really should go and meet the old man of the Noyes family, not with Ingram Noyes, but with Warner Black. Though, it wasn't just my father who was forced to jump off the building, but even Warner Black's parents were ruined by him. That's why we're able to join forces. The old man of the Noyes family didn't know if he couldn't trust Ingram Noyes, or if he really couldn't sit still. So he took the initiative to call me again. Warner Black and I pushed open the door to Noyes' old man's hospital room. The man who was invincible back then can only lie on the hospital bed like a skeleton at this moment. He said a lot of confessional words to Warner Black in front of me. Tears fell. Seriously, it looks dirty. Warner Black looked at me and mocked. Crocodile tears. I said, how can you say that, old man? Grandpa knows that it is good to repent, so that when you go in, you can repent slowly. The old man of the Noyes family glared at me. What do you mean? I smiled and said, in a few days, the old man should be able to receive a summons from the court. The old man of the Noyes family had a gloomy and deep face. What are you suing me? Just those scraps of paper at Noyes house that night. I smiled. If it was just a few pieces of waste paper, you wouldn't be lying here now. And besides, I got more than just those pieces of waste paper. I remember my father once said in the video that the Chongsing Group had a private account in that smuggling act. Of course, I didn't upload that video to the internet. I slowly put out the material, just to see the old man you collapse little by little. Oh, by the way, that account is already in my hands. The old man of the Noyes family was full of horror and disbelief, and he coughed violently, as if he would turn it back at any moment. He said, no way, how can you have that evidence? No, me, thanks to your eldest grandson. The old man's pupils shrank. Charles Noyes, no way, even if I kick him out of the board this time, he can't do such a thing. I smiled and said, old man, you are confused. I remember that Ingram Noyes is half a year older than Charles Noyes. Right, when Ingram Noyes was taken back to Noyes house, Noyes family deliberately registered Ingram Noyes' age 1 year younger for their own face. Ingram Noyes came a child of the junior. It's not evidence that Noyes family thinks Ingram Noyes' mother is born, and that the scumbag abandoned his wife and children. Warner Black and I admired the old man Noyes for a moment in a fit of rage, and then turned and walked out of the room. I said to Warner Black, wouldn't it be too morally degrading for us to do this? I don't know how to respect the elderly, Warner Black said. Rather than make me respect an old man who has done all the bad things, I'd rather be morally corrupt. I laughed. The court's verdict was not long in coming. The old man of the Noyes family, as the driving force behind the smuggling case that year, was sentenced to 30 years in prison. 30 years. It is estimated that he will spend his entire life in prison. I didn't expect Charles Noyes to come to me. When I came back from a hot pot with Amos Black, I saw Charles Noyes standing downstairs from my apartment. The clothes on his body are crumpled, and they have lost their former brilliance. Naturally, Amos Black pulled me behind me in a protective gesture. Sir, what are you looking for my fiancé? Charles Noyes looked at me with a solemn expression. Tracy Henry, I'd like to talk to you. Let's go to the cafe outside. Seeing that Amos Black was about to blow up, I touched his arm soothingly, and turned to Charles Noyes. Right here. Charles Noyes glanced at Amos Black. I laughed. He's my fiancé. There's nothing I can't listen to. Amos Black was in a good mood, and pulled me into his arms. Charles Noyes gritted his teeth, looked at me with a sad expression, and asked, Tracy Henry, why? Even if Grandpa did something wrong back then, at least Grandpa sent someone to take you back from the orphanage to Noyes house. Grandpa has a nurturing grace for you. Why do you want to kill them all? Look, I avenged my father and found justice, but in their eyes, I became a total killing. I asked him, how do you know that your grandfather didn't take me back to Noyes house to spy on me better? Don't you know that my life at Noyes house is worse than in an orphanage? Charles Noyes looked at me, with a disappointed look on his face. Tracy Henry, I didn't expect you to think of the Noyes family like that. I asked, so what should I think? I thought I was brought back from the orphanage, and your sister called me sister in front of the elders of the Noyes family, and turned around and pushed me down the stairs. But you only pretended not to see it. Even if I had bruises all the year round, no one would ask. I still want your sister to instruct other classmates to bully me at school. I was sent to the hospital. Noyes family only said lightly, the child is fighting. The hands are not lighter, but there are no bad intentions. I laughed out loud and said, how can you not have bad intentions? It's already broken to the bone. Amos Black hugged me tightly, and my whole body trembled slightly. I patted him on the back soothingly. Charles Noyes' face turned white for a while, and finally he said, I didn't know at the time. If I had known that Ada Noyes had done to you, I would have stopped her. I said, you won't. Charles Noyes was stunned. I debunked his hypocrisy. Remember the time I was blocked in that alley behind the school by your sister's gang of little sisters? You saw me. That time they intimidated me, and dared to go out of that alley. They stripped me naked and took pictures. I was so scared. I just hid by the garbage can in the alley, and hid all night. So, you won't stop her. You won't help me. You won't even tell anyone that I'm in that alley, and someone will come and save me. Charles Noyes, how did you have the face to stand in front of me and say that? In the end, Charles Noyes was beaten by Amos Black. If I hadn't pulled it, I'm afraid Charles Noyes' face wouldn't have been saved. In the evening, Amos Black held me tightly in his arms, and said sorry over and over again. I rubbed his soft hair and smiled and said, why do you say I'm sorry? It's not your fault. He said, I should have come earlier, so my sister wouldn't have to suffer so much. Noyes affairs. Everything is settled. Warner Black called to tell me that the Chongqing Group's refinancing had ended, and that the company had undergone a corporate restructuring. In the end, he said, Ingram Noyes is a ruthless character, and he forcibly withheld the money that Mrs. Noyes had embezzled, and Mrs. Noyes took out her private money to invest in Charles Noyes, but she lost so much that she didn't even have any underwear left. As for Ada Noyes, the video of her bullying classmates when she was studying was posted on the internet, and many victims have come forward to speak out and demand that she be held legally responsible. After all, in some videos, Ada Noyes is already 18 years old. I smiled. Justice may be late, but it will never be absent. Sister, Amos Black handed me the hot milk, and as I drank it, he hugged me from behind, and exhaled softly in my ear. Go to bed early tonight. We're going to try on wedding dresses tomorrow. I smiled and nodded. Okay. Extra. Amos Black perspective. When I was in kindergarten, I was very envious of my classmates, who had older sisters. So every time I came home from school, I would pester my parents to give me a sister. They are helpless. Later, They came up with a brilliant way to take me to an orphanage, intending to adopt a girl older than me and be my sister. It was the first time I met Tracy Henry, and she seemed out of place among the children in the orphanage. I told my mom and dad that I wanted Tracy Henry to be my sister. It started off smoothly, and when I got into my new clothes, my favorite toys and snacks, and got all the preparations for my sister home, Mom and Dad didn't bring Tracy Henry back. My mom told me that Tracy Henry was picked up by her father's friend. That night, I cried all night. Later, with the transfer of my father's work, our family moved back to Beijing. My grandparents and uncles were in Beijing, and I had more playmates, so this matter was slowly forgotten. Until the summer vacation, when I was 17, I went to College Town Stadium with a few buddies to play basketball. A red figure caught my eyes. She sat on the curb next to the stadium, her head down to feed a stray dog at her feet. I don't know who started first, but someone said, "Look, beautiful sister." Someone whistled in the direction of the figure. The next second, she looked up at us. I saw her face. Even after 10 years, that face changed from immature to youthful. I still recognized her in that moment, but she doesn't remember me anymore. She didn't recognize me, and lowered her head to continue fiddling with the puppy at her feet. I couldn't help but start paying attention to her. I found out that the university she was studying at was right next door to our high school, and I always ran next door. But she seems to have a boyfriend, but her relationship with her boyfriend doesn't seem to be very good. I've seen her boyfriend go out with other women, on several occasions and even in hotels. I found out the man's name, Ingram Noyes. I later learned that it wasn't her boyfriend, it was her fiancé. They will have a wedding soon, but she's only a sophomore in college. During the summer of her sophomore year, Tracy Henry and Ingram Noyes returned to T-City for their wedding. I hid not far away, and watched Tracy Henry go through the wedding process without joy or sorrow. When I got back that day, I was very sick. When I recovered, I told my parents that I was in love with someone else's wife. The parents were initially shocked, but then they set out to investigate Tracy Henry and Ingram Noyes. Dad told me that the two of them did not register their marriage. That is, from a legal point of view, my sister is still single. After the wedding, Tracy Henry still went back to school, and Ingram Noyes still took all kinds of women in and out of high-end shopping places or hotels. I'm not worth it for my sister. My sister is clearly worthy of the best man in the world, not the scum of Ingram Noyes. I silently followed my sister for 2 years until I couldn't control myself anymore. So, I chose to take the initiative. I did it. I became my sister's person, and my sister belonged to me alone. Gradually, however, I was no longer satisfied with this state of not being able to be upright. I know my sister is actually ready. Actually, it doesn't matter if my sister isn't ready. I've paved all the way. I will also help my sister prepare all the evidence. Of course, my sister is the best. When the dust settled, my sister and I were finally able to stay together, until Charles Noyes came to him. I just learned that the people of the Noyes family used to spoil my sister like that. If it weren't for the law, I would have even wanted to cramp and strip the bones of the Noyes family. That night, I hugged my sister tightly and stroked her back over and over again. It wasn't until she fell asleep that I got up and went to the living room to make a call. A few of my buddies are also from all walks of life, and it's too easy to find out the black history of Ada Noyes. Ada Noyes. I'm not going to let her live so easily. Because of the people who hurt my sister, I won't let go of any of them. Hanging up the phone, my sister was still asleep. I got into the quilt, hugged the person tightly in my arms, lowered my head and kissed her forehead. Sister. The end.